And we're back at the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois, at the United Center. I am joined now by Aimy Steele, CEO of the North Carolina Project. Aimy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The North Carolina Project, voting turnout is very, very important. What is the North Carolina Project?
So, New North Carolina Project is a voter mobilization and voter registration organization. I started it after running for House twice and losing, and really understanding that there were more than 1 million black and brown voters left on the table who were either eligible to register to vote and just didn't register, or they were registered but just didn't vote.
It seems as though we are going through this effort every 4 years. Why?
You want to know why?
I'd love to know why. And that's why you're here, because you can tell me why.
So as a former Spanish teacher and school principal, I can tell you,
Yes.
prior to me getting involved in politics, no one ever stopped by my door. No one ever came by and said, hey, are you interested in learning about who's running for office? We have an engagement problem, and it's a problem that is not rooted in trust. It's not rooted in, just people understanding what importance voting has in their lives. We really don't make politics sexy enough for people to grab a hold to every single year. So they really only talk about it every 4 years, and therefore we have an engagement problem.
So politics isn't sexy, but paying $3.50 for a head of lettuce, paying $21 for a gallon of milk, and $14 for a pound of chicken wings, that's not sexy either, but that's real.
It is real. And let me tell you what happens. We don't make the argument of politics being relative to someone's everyday life enough, and that's why we have an engagement challenge. What my organization does is we seek after 4 pillars, right? We educate people on economic mobility, housing security,
Okay.
public safety, and civic engagement, and then we tie that to voting. That's the difference, and that's what's needed in between these major election years every 4 years.
So as a former principal and former Spanish teacher, and I'm not going to ask the next question in Spanish.
Pero si se puede.
Okay. So, what happened to civics in the classroom?
So we still have civics in the classroom, but we have so much division. What you have to understand is teachers are designed and trained to
Correct.
be nonpartisan and as unbiased as possible, because face it, we don't want to hear from parents about indoctrinating their children. Plus, we're trained that way. So over the years, teachers have gotten very crafty at how they teach civics 101 and
Okay.
political economic systems and all the courses, but we've only just begun by teaching the basics. We really haven't taken a deep dive of making sure our young people are registered to vote, making sure they really understand what politics means in their lives. And so teachers have also shied away from these things because, face it, they can be brought up on grievance accusations, right, or have grievances filed against them just by mentioning certain things from a political perspective, even if it is nonpartisan in classrooms. So therefore, we see this kind of downplaying of the importance of civics education overall.
Is that a partisan issue? Is the hit that teachers are taking on the civics curriculum, is that a partisan issue?
Well, it's become a partisan issue. It shouldn't be,
Right.
but it's become a partisan issue, just like teaching people about our culture and making sure we understand what our history is has become a partisan issue. It's American history. This is American
Right.
civics. It should just be a part of the curriculum. I'm a curriculum specialist. We should ensure our curriculum is rooted in truth, honesty, and facts.
That's a tough call right there in this climate. Should civics be, or is civics or American government, or however you want to frame it, is that a part of the platform that you all are teaching in your program?
So in our program, we're actually teaching everyday Americans about how life choices actually impact them politically.
Okay.
And how, for instance, energy efficiency, those are political decisions.
Right.
Whether or not people tell us, or they tell us about the fact that their water bill, their gas bill, their power bill are more expensive, or they cost more than their regular mortgage and their rent. And so we showed them how the bipartisan infrastructure law or other very important pieces of legislation actually make the way for them to have funding to be able to pay for those things. So we don't explicitly teach civics, right? But what we do is we encourage people to know how civics actually applies to their lives. Until people understand the connection, they're not going to say that it's so important to vote. So we've got to make that connection from a voter education perspective.
So in terms of an operational, how do you operationalize this? How do you get the people to come in, or do you is it outreach on your part?
Yep.
How long of a program is it? Give me some practical operational aspects of the new North Carolina project.
Okay, so for instance, we knock doors every day. We knock thousands of doors each week with our force of people who work for New North Carolina Project. On the doors, we talk to people about those 4 pillars, but particularly about energy efficiency, and energy upgrades. We are using funding from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the National Renewable Energies Lab to take the message of how we can upgrade and update people's homes and provide weatherization updates. How we can replace their HVAC systems to make them more energy efficient, and how we can replace their heat pumps or hot water heaters with heat pump hot water heaters to make their energy use more efficient. Once we do that, we then engage them on a monthly basis through family nights and through a little thing we like to call pancakes and politics.
Right.
And we just invite people in for a meal to really learn what we're doing at all of our programs, learn all about our programs.
What about solar? Is solar part of that energy program in North Carolina?
Not yet, but Solar for All is quite an amazing program.
So why isn't solar currently part of the program?
So solar is not a part of our program, but it's certainly a part of some other climate and environmental programs. We have chosen to focus on energy efficiency because when we knocked 48,000 doors in 2022, people told us that all they wanted to do was make their lives better from an everyday perspective. What could we do? When they told us these things, we took those things to action. We created programs, and those programs are what we talk about when we go knock on those doors. We also sent 2.2 million text messages, made 135,000 phone calls. So we stay connected to our community. We have monthly events, and we enroll them in a program that works for whatever thing they're trying to fix at that time.
You must also be psychic, because metrics was my next question. So about how many people, beyond the phone calls, about how many people have you all touched?
So we have touched over 80,000 people with our messaging on the doors, the phones, and the text messages. And these are responses that we have received. These are conversations we've had. These are engagements we've had. We've worked with people from a digital perspective. So I raise money all the time to make sure this operation keeps on going. But this is what we do because we know that, again, I started the organizations trying to get people to vote, but people didn't care about voting only. They want to know, how do you make my life, how can you make my life better? Then talk to me about voting. And so that's what we did. We just flipped the message.
Muchas gracias, Aimy Steele.
De nada, señor. Mucho gusto.
Aimy Steele, CEO of the new North Carolina Project. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, Politics in Color is where you are. Politicsincolor.com is where you need to be. There's more. Stay with us.